Hello and welcome once again to Hawkeye Nation. This is your Iowa football, basketball, and recruiting podcast, HawkCast, brought to you by Hawkeye Beacon and Rivals.com. I am not your usual host, Elliot Clough. I am publisher Adam Jacoby, but I am joined, as always, by managing editor Ross Binder, and we have a very special guest that we'd like to welcome in just one moment. But before we get started, make sure you subscribe on YouTube, hit the like, drop a comment, and every little bit of support that we get helps, and we appreciate it very, very much. All right, now on to our special guest, quite possibly one of the most famous unranked recruits of the Kirk Ferentz era, listed as a 6'0", 280-pound recruit at defensive tackle from Tampa Wharton in the class of 2004, after being a champion wrestler and weightlifter in high school. He then retired from football shortly thereafter due to knee injuries, but kept up with his high school pursuits to become one of the most well-decorated, well-recognized, well-respected, well-traveled, and well-wished wrestlers of the last decade plus. Ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only WWE superstar, Big E. Big E, how are you doing? And thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm good. I'm good. I appreciate the very, very lovely introduction, and thank you once again for having me on. I want to apologize once again. Just moved into a new house, so the audio is not the best. But no, thank you very much. It's kind of wild thinking back. You know, people often, like the last year or so, I've had people mention my recruiting stuff. I didn't think it was a big deal. No one really knew who I was. So it's interesting. I talked to people now who saw that picture of me from high school, and there was apparently some scuttlebutt on the message boards about my recruiting. But no, it's very lovely to talk to you.
What was the scuttlebutt that you caught wind of about your recruiting?
So I just have a bunch of my friends. So I still talk to Mike Sabers, Lucas Cox, and Rashad Dunn. We all came in the same class. And I guess the great thing is we have a group chat, and people often talk about in college football, this is family, but there really is merit to that. Those guys are like my brothers. So we talk essentially every day. We have group text. I've been able to, thankfully with all my travels, I've been able to see those guys, to stay at their homes, to meet their families over the last several years. But what they talk about is just seeing this picture of me, and at the time, you do the deal where you make your neck look bigger, you roll your track forward, you put on the mean face. That was it. And I was a pretty muscular kid too. So I remember a lot of my teammates saying, "Who is this? This is what college football looks like. This is what guys are. This is what we're in for." But yeah, so there's a little bit of that talk. But I always think I was so absurdly fortunate to even get a shot by Iowa. I played 1 year of high school football. I am not 6 feet tall. I am, pushing 5'11". But no, I was really, really fortunate to get to Iowa. And I was a no-star guy. I was one of those guys who I wasn't really on anyone's rankings. And actually, so I took my official visit to Iowa the day after I graduated high school. Which, you take your officials, your junior year is your critical year for everything. And everyone was off campus except for D-Rob. Derek Robinson was the one guy who ended up playing with the Chargers. Great dude, super cool. But he was like the only guy who was around them.
That's amazing. And in fact, it sort of leads into one of the things that I sort of wanted to ask about. And one, you sort of mentioned that you keep up with those guys from your class. And I remember when I was graduating high school, which was even longer ago than you did, so one of the things that people told me was college is where you make your first friends for life. And, when you're coming out of high school, you're like, yeah, get real. But that truly was for me, especially, the guys that I grew up or, that I stayed with on the same floor. A bunch of them I'm still in contact with today. Rashad Dunn that you mentioned, a lot of people of the many contributions you've made to the WWE sort of landscape and pop culture, this and that, your big meaty men slapping meat little thing, which is an all-time classic. But what a lot of folks don't know is that Rashad is the one holding the mic next to you guys. He's guy number 4 in the room. So how has that relationship sort of developed, maintained since you guys were there in Iowa City together?
No, man, it's I got chills now just thinking about it because it means everything. Like he's That's my brother. I have two actual blood sisters. I don't have any real brothers, blood brothers, but I like those guys are all my brothers. But more than anyone, that was Rashad. In the dorms, we didn't room together, but we were always close as friends. The bowl game, the Outback Bowl in Tampa. That was me and Rashad roomed together then. We were roommates at 830 Miller Ave, the same house that George Kittle has tattooed on him. That was Mike's mom was our landlord, and we all stayed in that house together. So Rashad and I were the ones downstairs. But it's funny you actually mentioned Rashad too, because I was just texting with him yesterday too. And one of the crazy things is like I was a really introverted, quiet kid. No one ever foresaw me being in entertainment whatsoever. And I told Rashad, like I was just thinking back to, I think it was like 2 years ago, we got to do I get to do the Kids' Choice Awards. And Rashad now lives in Southern California, like an hour outside of LA. And we were able, like he came, we got to do the red carpet together. And for me, as someone who I never saw myself getting into entertainment, never saw myself being a pro wrestler, to meet this guy at 18 years old and we bonded like that deeply, 20 years later, to be able to be on to do these red carpets, to share these moments. We were like for years and years, we would get up at like 5, 6 a.m. We play UFC. He's in California, I'm in Florida, and we'd catch up on life. But those truly are Mike, Luke, and Rashada. They truly are my oldest friends and guys that like really feel like family. So still being able to maintain those relationships, I tell those guys all the time. It's one of the things in my personal life that I'm most proud of is having these relationships that we've been able to manage and foster and continue to grow for now. It's crazy to think it has been 20 years since we first met.
Yeah, pretty much almost, if not exact. And oh no, in fact, it is a majority of your life that you guys have been friends. That's pretty amazing to think about. So going back to recruiting, I believe Phil Parker was your primary recruiter. Is that correct?
Yeah. So, man, and it's another wild story. Wild in that, like, for me, it's really, I think of all the things that I've been able to do, the cool things in my life, and it just feels like right place, right time, happenstance. But the first time I ever meet Phil Parker is he's looking for, I'm a senior at the time, and the way things were set up, and again, like I'm so fortunate it was this way, but our high school at Wharton, the weight room was connected to the coach's office. And the only way to get to the coach's office, Coach Cunningham's office, was to walk through the weight room. And that day, I'm the only person in the weight room. He's looking for juniors. I'm an outgoing senior. So for the most part, at the time, I had an academic scholarship to Florida, and I'm thinking about walking on. I had some other small school offers that I was contemplating, but thankfully, I always say, like, thank God on that day, I wasn't sick. I wasn't out doing something else. I wasn't whatever it was, but I was bench pressing 315 for a set of 10. And Phil walks in at that time and just happens to see it and says, "Who is this guy?" And it just went from there. And that's the only reason I got an offer. I wasn't on their radar whatsoever. He just, right place, right time. Phil happened to walk in, and Phil was recruiting Florida at the time. And now to go on and see him win the Broyles Award, see how amazing the defense the last, 3-4 years has been, top 5, has just been incredible. It's so dope to be able to look back. And I tell people too, it is so rare in college football to have a staff that has been together for this long. Coach Ferentz there since '99. I played with Abdul. Brian's no longer with the program, but Brian was also a teammate. The head strength coach right now, Ray, was an assistant then. There are just so many guys on and on. There are so many more others right now, but so many guys that were there 20 years ago, whether they were teammates. LeVar was a GA when I was still on campus, but I was done with my playing time. So it's just so cool to see some of the guys that I knew and respect still doing incredible things for the program.
When LeVar was a GA back when you were with the team, was he like this back then, the way that he is now, just that upbeat, intense, like Red Bull running through the veins at 5 a.m.? Was he that dude 20 years ago too?
I think LeVar was always that guy. He was always like, I distinctly remember I spent a Thanksgiving with a holiday party at his house, and he was great and always kind and warm. But it's no shock that LeVar is doing such incredible things because he always had that mentality and that focus. And I think he's just a driven guy and a guy who is a dream to play for. I can imagine just being really excited to play for that guy. So it's been incredible to see what he's done with the special teams. He deserves all the accolades in the world, but just a very driven, focused individual.
And then,
So
go ahead, Russ.
I was just saying, when you were there, Norm Parker was the defensive coordinator at Iowa. So there's lots of great stories about Norm, but you must have a few yourself. So what was it like to play for Norm back then?
Yeah, I mean, Norm was just he would push you, man. Like Norm was one of those guys who had everyone's respect. But you dreaded getting called out at defensive team meetings for making them. And I did one time, and I said, especially as a backup. I was a starter. I didn't have the leeway to make mistakes. But Norm just got the best out of guys, and he drove us hard. And that moniker of being the bullies of the Big Ten was something that we took very serious. Is that we're going to be hard nosed. We're going to hit people on every single play, and that was something that Norm demanded. There was you didn't play blocks in a soft way. You didn't run around like you're going to go through your man. You use technique. You use what you were taught. You lead with your head. You lead with your hands. And that was what Norm demanded. So I just remember, that's what I think of more with Norm is being on that golf cart, driving around, just cussing people out left and right. But it was always to get the very best out of us.
Yeah. So some folks don't really know, but a lot of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's, sort of rockisms have a genesis in former Miami line coach and former head coach Ed Orgeron. Like a lot of those things, he sort of learned those sayings from Coach O. Are there any normisms that have ever made it onto air in the ring?
I wish I could say there was something. Honestly, I couldn't get away. It's a PG product. I don't think I could get away with anything Norm had to say. I'll keep all those to myself.
Monday Night Raw gets demonetized.
Just like that.
And then who was your position coach at that time?
Ron Aiken, who went on to coach for the Cardinals, was the defensive line coach for the Cardinals a bit. But actually, another crazy story is, so Ron was the defensive line coach at a small school called Tarkio College. And at Tarkio, and one of the reasons I got to Iowa was because my defensive line coach in high school played for Ron at Tarkio. And little did he know, it wasn't until Phil first saw me, and then Ron came down, and then he saw my coach Vince Davis, and they're like, "Oh snap! I didn't know." So Ron, Vince, being able to vouch for me, and my defensive line coach in high school, Vince Davis, was really like a mentor. Really looked out for me, took great care of me. Great human being, and that was really the reason that Ron trusted his word, because he knew him. So and actually, Boogeyman, also who was a WWE wrestler, known for eating worms, he also played for Ron at Tarkio College. So it's so crazy how small the world can be. You think about football and wrestling, and I never thought so many of my worlds colliding has really been incredible. But Ron Aiken was someone who just really commanded respect from all of us. He didn't really have to even say a word. I remember the one time I remember him saying we were hitting bags, and I didn't hit it as hard as he would have liked, and he said, if you don't hit that bag, I'm going to hit you. And that alone, he didn't need to cuss you out, but knowing how serious this man, that was enough. That was like him telling me to go to hell. That was all I needed to hear to know, okay, you better lock in. But yeah, I was really fortunate. And that's one of the things that, even though my football career didn't go the way that I wanted to, I was surrounded by so many great coaches, strength coaches, assistant coaches, head coaches. I was really fortunate to be around some of the very best in college football.
So it has been, a while since you were in Iowa City, but, are there things that you still miss about Iowa City or college football even now?
It actually hasn't been that long, man. I've been fortunate enough. I was back during the summer. I stay with Mike Sabers, who's in Solon right now. We go to Uncle Seng's. If anyone is in the area, Uncle Seng's has it's a sushi spot. That's our spot. But you know what? It's been, and again, I got chills thinking about it, because I think for me, with my knee injuries, with my struggles with mental health in college, I didn't know if Iowa was going to be a place that I would gleefully return to, just because, I had some hard times there, but it's been so amazing. I love now when we have shows in Cedar Rapids and I'm able to go back and perform, I get so much love and I feel like I'm home. The last several years, I've been able to go back to, I was there for Penn State, Iowa, when Penn State was number 2. We shocked them, we beat Penn State. I got to do a big noon kickoff for that. That's the one thing that I really treasure. I got to go on the field and hype up the student section as well. I so felt like I was a nobody when I was in Iowa City. I didn't have the career I wanted. I wasn't a big recruit. I didn't feel like anyone really cared or knew who I was. And now being able to go back, and it feels like it's healing in so many ways. And it's so interesting too, because it's one of the things I don't think we talk enough about as former athletes, is I think so many of us, because you're an athlete since you're a little kid, so many of us, this is all we know. We get to college, this is finally our dream. And then if our careers don't go the way we want to, like I talk to other teammates of mine, and even like they talk about having trepidation about going back, or feeling like they're not welcome or wanted. But I always tell people, like, man, like, no one thinks about how many reps you got or how much you played. Like when I get a chance to go back, like I'm excited to see Robert Gallery, and I'm excited to see Sam Brownlee. Like I'm excited to see guys who went on to be, high draft picks and made millions of dollars. And I'm just as excited to see walk-ons who barely, touch the field, because you're part of a brotherhood and you have a shared experience. We all went through the same thing together. We went through camps together. We traveled together. We went through the ups and downs of what it was like to be 18 years old, figuring out life, figuring out how to interact with women, trying to figure out school, all these different things. So, it's been really great for me, and I think really healing for me to be able to go back to Iowa City and to really feel like this is home for me. This is second home. So I'm always excited. I'm really excited. I have hopefully things work out. We're working on something to hopefully be a part of Iowa, Washington, to be there for that week. But I'm definitely going to be in town for homecoming week. And we have some great things lined up. And I'm really honored that the president's office reached out and we've been talking about some things. So I'm going to be able to go to Iowa City and talk about mental health, which is supremely important to me. So for me, like that, I'm so grateful that I've been able to go back to Iowa lately, and even doing stuff with Pancheros now, my favorite burrito chain from college, something that I tell them, like, I would do this for free. I would stand on a mountain and tell people how much I love Pancheros for free. But it's been, for me, one of the most amazing things. I didn't do a good job of staying in touch with people from high school. So really, my connections, when I talk about friends, when I talk about community, it really starts with Iowa. Those are my oldest friends. That's my oldest community. I have so much love for the people of Iowa, for the university, and I'm so excited to be back in just a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'm
Awesome.
glad that you sort of mentioned, sort of keeping track of, or not really keeping track of, at the end of the day, you don't care whether, this teammate had 300 rushing yards or 304. No one's sort of keeping that track with anybody else. So, why do we do that with ourselves? And, when it comes to self-evaluation, what it ultimately comes down to is what's the quality of the relationships that you made while you were there. Like that's sort of a magnet. And that's, I think, something that's always been really helpful for me to, sort of remind myself in, times of low mental health too. It's, what do we lean on? What was always sort of the most important to us? So it's really good to hear that too. And then having also been in that stadium for the 2021 Penn State game, I did one of the things that I really did want to ask you, like, what was it like being on the field and especially for how loud that stadium was that night, like Kinnick After Dark at its Kinnick After Darkest,
Yeah, it was really special, man. But you know what? I didn't get the full experience, and I hate telling this, but I had to leave after the first quarter. It was honestly one of the craziest days of my life, because that day I got to be a part of Wilder Fury, which was in Vegas. So that whole week is kind of wild. So I had to go to Vegas to pre-record the intros for what, it was one of those fights where a lot of, big fight fans didn't like, why do we need a third Wilder Fury fight? But it ended up being a classic. So I go to Vegas and I had to record these intros for both Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder. Then I fly to Iowa City, and I got to have, as a kid, college football was my first love as a kid. And I got to have dinner with the Big Noon Kickoff crew. I brought Mike with me, Sabres as well. We're having dinner with Reggie Bush, with Matt Leinart, with Brady Quinn, Just one of those, just an incredible night. And those guys were all amazing. So we do that. The next day we get to do Big Noon Kickoff. That went so well. And I get to watch the game. But unfortunately, it's one of those things where I hate, like, you know, a little bit of a humble brag. But I got to see the first quarter. Then they got me a private jet. I had to hop on a private jet. We're calling the driver because, you know, it's so hard to get signal there. Finally find the driver to get us to the airport, to fly to Vegas. I get to Vegas in time for the fight. And it's one of those things where I was hoping to have signal on the plane or Wi-Fi or anything. And I think at the end of the first quarter, I think we were behind. I don't know if we scored really any points. So I didn't know where things were going. I didn't know. No one was updating me on the game on the plane. No Wi-Fi, no monitors at all. And then as soon as we touched down, I see the highlights. I see the field storming. Just one of those incredible experiences. But unfortunately, I wasn't there for that because I had to sit, you know, front row for one of the fights of the year. But just one of those, as a huge boxing fan, as a huge college football and Iowa fan, just one of those pinch me bucket list days. How is this my life? How am I getting to do all this? Just a really cool day for me.
In terms of, you know, you mentioned a little bit ago that your career didn't really shake out the way that you wanted it to in terms of college football. So what was your transition to WWE like, sort of taking that sort of leap of faith, I guess? Like, how'd you get from that point A to that point B?
Man, it's another one of those right place, right time stories. So Mike Humple, I end up, I tore both my ACLs, I broke my right patella, I tear my left pec. My right patella is my last injury, and that's during bowl prep of 2006. So my first 2 years on campus, I'm out with injury. Finally, I'm able to play in the defensive line rotation in 06 behind Kroll and Mitch King, super talented DTs, but we're in the rotation. And then we get to bowl prep. We're about to go to the Alamo Bowl to play Texas. And that week, my knee's just killing me. I don't know what's going on. I think I had a hairline fracture, but eventually breaks. And you know what? We all kind of decide taking a medical hardship and being done with football is probably best. So that was definitely a hard time for me. But, you know, thankfully, I always credit just some incredible people in my life in Iowa. I had a professor, Dr. Christina Parrott, who pulled me aside and said, hey, have you considered doing grad school? And for me, I was like, you know, I'm really fortunate that I had no school bills because I'm on scholarship for undergrad, but I can't really afford grad school. And she said, you know what, we can actually get you set up as a teaching assistant and get you paid and get your school covered. And that's what I did. So I was still on campus at the time. And Coach Doyle had always been great to me, always looked out for me, always checked in. And I was still working out at the facility. So even though I was done with the team in 06, through 07, 08, 09, I would still come in when there were no other groups lifting, and I would work out. And Mike Humple got drafted by the Steelers, but he had a neck injury. So Mike was back training with me. So we were just training together all the time, and great dude. And Mike just came up to me one day and said, have you ever considered WWE? And I said, well, I was a fan as a kid, but beyond that, no. Because like I always tell people, if someone asked me to list 1,000 potential jobs I might want to do coming out of college, professional wrestler would not be one. I'm a quiet, introverted kid who watched wrestling as a kid, and I stopped at about age 13, 14. That was about it. But Mike Humple actually befriended Mike Doherty, and Mike Doherty was close with the Iowa wrestling program, was very good friends with Dan Gable, and Mike Doherty just randomly ran into Jim Ross, who was with WWE at the time, on a plane, on one flight. He happened to be with him on the connecting flight as well, and saw Mike wearing the Iowa shirt, had the logo, the Hawkeye logo on his shirt, and they started talking. And because of Mike's connection with the Iowa wrestling program, Jim Ross thought, okay, like if you have any elite amateur wrestlers at Iowa who are done with their amateur wrestling career who want to get into WWE, because amateur wrestling is such a great base. You see those amateur wrestlers come in and they pick up what we do like that. So that's kind of how it all started, is me knowing Mike knowing another Mike meeting Jim Ross on a plane, and coming back to me and say, hey, is this something you might want to try? And he told me about it. I got to sit down with Mike Doherty. We had lunch, and I find out that the tryout, and if I were to get signed, it would be in Tampa. It was at FCW. So that's where I'm from. That's my parents live 30 minutes from the building. So I always thought, you know what? if I'm terrible at this, if they fire me, if I get hired and they fire me in 3 months, I can just stay with my folks, save up some money. And they told me, when I talked to my grad school professors, they said my credits will expire in a decade. So even if I wanted to take a year off, I could come back, finish my second year of my master's, and I'd be good. Mind you, at the time I thought, oh, a decade. I'll be back before a decade. It's been 15 years, so that's out the window. But that's how I got to WWE, is just happenstance. And whether you want to say it's God or karma or the universe, whatever it is, I feel like there was some power greater than me that was putting all these pieces in place that I could not foresee, that I could not envision for my life. And I've been so incredibly fortunate. And like the lesson for me, especially as someone who was scared to bet on himself, who didn't have very much self-belief, is like, I'm so grateful that I took those leaps. Because every big leap that I've been able to take in my life, whether it was getting to Iowa, from Iowa to WWE, it's always paid off. And I always tell people, like, if you have the right mentality and the right perspective, I don't think with experiences, I don't think you ever lose. It's either win or learn. Like, I'm going to take that opportunity. It might not have gone the way I wanted to, but now I'm going to be able to recalibrate. I'm going to learn something about myself. I'm going to be able to come back better and stronger, smarter, more disciplined the next time. I'm going to learn something about myself and about the experience that is going to allow me to be even better the next go round. And for me, that's been such an invaluable lesson, is to take those leaps. Even when I didn't believe in myself, even when I couldn't foresee all the successes. 15 years ago, I didn't foresee becoming WWE champion. I didn't foresee becoming a part of the New Day. WWE voted us the greatest tag team of all time. It's just, I look back at my life, and now I've done some movies, I've done TV, I've done voice acting, I've traveled the world, I've been to Europe more times than I can count. I got paid to go to Tokyo. I wrestled in Malaysia. I wrestled Randy Orton and Rob Van Dam in South Africa. What a life! What an incredible life, man. And you know what? I struggled so much with my mental health in college. I was in a psych ward for a month. Just deeply, deeply depressed for so much of my life. And now I look back and I think, thank God I never hurt myself. Thank God I never took myself out of life, because now I can look back and I'm so happy, I'm healthy, I'm excited about life. Even breaking my neck a couple years ago, I'm still more than anything, I count my blessings. I feel great. I have a world of opportunities and experiences before me. So yeah, it's just really a testament to having amazing people in my life along the way, even if they didn't realize what they were doing at the time, who opened a door for me, and another door opened after that, and another door. And I'm really just so fortunate. At 22 years old, I didn't even know if I would be alive at 38 years old, and now I'm here, and life is really, really beautiful. So and I owe so much of my life success, of my career success, of this current path I'm on, to the University of Iowa, to the coaches, to professors, to my friends, to my teammates, just to so many incredible people along the way. And that's why I will always beat the drum for the University of Iowa.
Well, you mentioned before, you were kind of a shy, introverted kid, growing up, and clearly that's not at all what you were in the WWE. So, how did you become such a, relentlessly positive, outgoing, and one of the best talkers in that company for, the last decade? Like,
Thank you.
That's an incredible transformation.
Yeah, it definitely took time and learning to trust myself. For the longest time, I would say for the first several years in WWE, from FCW and even on the main roster, I would say I was not a good talker. I don't think I was a confident promo, and I just didn't really believe in myself. It's also just very different from playing football, helmet on, you're only judged on what you do physically. No one really sees your face. You're not asked to go out there and cut entertaining promos. So that was the biggest difference for me, is just learning to be comfortable. But, as a kid, I remember doing silly things to make my sisters laugh or to make my close friends laugh. But I only felt that way if I was really comfortable with people. And that just took me time to learn to trust myself, to trust my instincts. Over time with the New Day, we got to do so many different promos and interviews, and you're doing press. And I think that training of just regularly talking got me more and more comfortable. And I always tell people, like, the reason I started wrestling was because I love the physical aspect of it. I loved that when I was done with football, there was this void, and I felt like I had more to give athletically. And although it's not conventional sports, what we do, it's still physical. It's still, you're able to go out there and run and hit and jump and all those things. So it really helped fill that void. But as we started circa 2014, 2015 with the New Day, and we got to be more colorful. We got to, so much of my career, I was so stoic, especially on the main roster. I was told to be stoic, don't show emotion. So it was just very insular. I was very inside of myself. I didn't learn to grow as a performer until the New Day. And then when we started wearing more colorful gear and clothes, we had more opportunities to go out there and start pitching stuff of our own and start writing more of our promos. I got more and more confident, more and more comfortable. And then it really just lit this fire in me, because now it's like, ooh, how much can I push the line here? Can I try this really weird thing, and will people react well? Can they like? So that became the game for me. That's how that became really fulfilling, is how can I add a new element or a new wrinkle? Or let me try this out, because there's nothing like having that immediate crowd response. And that's why I love what we do. Conventional acting is great too, when you're in front of a camera, but you don't get that immediate feedback from the fans. Will tell you in an instant whether it's good or whether it sucks. They'll let you know right there whether, when you hear crickets, it's, oh no, that did not land. But when you get that big laugh, or when you get that big response, man, that for me, that's my addiction. That became my drug. When I know I could go out there and like people might be sitting on their hands from the match before or the promo before, but if I can get them up and laughing, if I can get them up and smiling, if I see them nudging their friend and giggling, and then we started getting deeper into it, and you would start seeing the Burrito signs, you would see the unicorn signs, you would see, like, people would make these really creative signs that you could like move of, my tag partner Kofi twerking or me twerking. Just a lot of, we have the trombone, we have the cereal, it became so fun for us to just go out there and try things, especially a lot of things you didn't necessarily see in pro wrestling. We were doing things that we didn't often, I think a lot of people didn't associate with wrestling. You think of very serious men who wear black and they're very mean, and that's, people have this very narrow view of what a professional wrestler is.
They don't really think like trombone live sound effects for when you're doing a whipping.
No.
And yet it's amazing. Like it feels like it should have been there the whole time.
Yes, exactly. So more than anything like that, and that for me, it was it. Like I did all the respect in the world to John Cena, to The Rock, to Roman Reigns. I always wanted my own lane. I wanted to be a one-of-one, even if you consider them the greatest. And they've had incredible careers, and most people would consider them the GOATs, and rightfully so. But I just wanted to be someone who could really say, no one's going to fill my shoes. There are guys who might be better promos. There might be guys who are bigger. They can do certain elements of what I do really, really well. But I always wanted to be a one-of-one, and that no one could put all the elements of what I do together. That was always my goal, at least. Whether I succeeded or failed, I just wanted to carve my own lane, and that's what I'm proud of, because so often, especially when I won the WWE Championship and I was on my singles run, I got a lot of feedback like, you can't do this, you can't look like that, you can't cut promos like this, you're going to really have to change. But no, I fought to be myself, and that for me as a performer was something that's vitally important for me, is to be able to trust my own instincts, to go out there and sink or swim on my own. I know I'm not always going to get it right, but just this belief that I want to do things my way, because I can sleep at night. If I fail, if I sink doing it my way, I'm okay with that. But if I sink doing it your way, that I'm not cool with. So it really just over the last several years, I've really grown to love being a performer. I really love it, and it's been a blast. So I'm really excited. I apologize for being long-winded, but that's my spiel about being a performer.
No, that's a great answer, and it all felt like it felt important. We obviously, there's about 15 different follow-up questions I could ask from that, but we have already taken up so much of your time. I'll just try to keep it to like a couple more here. I guess sort of first and foremost, this, long-standing partnership that you've had with the New Day, especially when so much of wrestling is like, all right, they've been together for 18 months, they're overdue for a breakup angle, they're, at some point there's going to be, this or that. And, even when you guys were doing singles runs, it never really, got kicked off by, well, then one of them punched the other in the face first, and especially for all the, sort of folks that have followed you from your Hawkeye days, and one of our premium users, Waterloo Chaz, wanted to make sure that we mentioned how much, Iowa fans admire you for all your hard work, supporting the House of Positive Energy, HOPE, stuff like that. Just sort of that, when your lane is this sort of wholesome teamwork sort of thing, how sort of spiritually fulfilling is that? And then in particular, when we're talking about the single stuff in Kofi Mania and in that run, Xavier mentioned in one of his interviews that he did not want to be told the outcome of the match. That the surprise that you guys were going to show was going to be genuine, at the very least for him. He was just speaking for himself. Like there was some stage direction stuff, but if the outcome was going to change, he did not want to know about it. Were you in that same boat? Did you also just want to be like, did you want to experience that unpredictability as it was happening?
Yeah, no, very much so. And I think, it's interesting too, because I've had conversations with Woods and Kofi recently, and they've talked about how certain things they're doing now feel so real. Like there are times as performers where you go out there and obviously you're performing, but when you're in it, when you're saying what you're saying, like there are times where you're overcome with emotion, and you have to hold that back because you have such a close connection to what's going on. And although what we do is obviously entertainment, Kofi having to wait 11 years for his first WWE championship match, that's real. That's a real thing in that, you can argue that the belts, the titles, the matches, it's all scripted, but someone working their hardest to get to the top of the card, someone spending years and years barely seeing their family, being on the road often, that's real. Someone seeing, new people who haven't climbed up the ladder, seeing them jump straight to the top, seeing that and having to put a smile on your face every single week and still being professional. Like that's very real. So for us, like that's our guy, that's our brother. Even though what we do is a television show, we all clicked very, very early into our journey. We were riding together even before we were all on TV together. When we first started the seeds of this group in 2014, we were doing live events together. So we were in the car 5 days a week. We would go to TVs. At the time, we were doing 5 shows a week, pretty much every single week. And it really forged this bond with us. And we were getting all these no's too, backstage when we were pitching and trying to get our D off the ground, people laughing at us. Big Show, the only reason I'll mention Big Show's name because he came back and apologized after when we had success. But in front of me and Woods, he would tell Kofi, "What are you doing? You're wasting your career hanging around with these guys. You're someone who's just destined to be in a much better spot. Why are you palling around with these guys in 2014?" And at least he had the balls to say it in front of us, because a lot of times we were hearing from writers were laughing at us, other talent were laughing at us for being 3 guys who are coming together trying to do something. And it is so fulfilling. I'm not fueled by spite. It's not, I showed you, but it's more than anything, it's, I knew that trusting our instincts, sticking together was what was right. And even though we couldn't see it, even though people were laughing at us, even though people who with authority and clout were telling us this is silly, you're wasting your time, we knew we had something special. Now, I didn't know we would go on to break a record that stood for 20 years. I didn't know that I'd become WWE champion, that Kofi would have, Kofi Mania as well, and that Woods would become king of the ring. I didn't know how high this thing would go, but I knew we had something special. So, I didn't want to know either. And that moment, you see Woods tearing up when he goes in the ring to pick up Kofi. That comes from a very real place. And for us to be able to share that with Kofi's family, seeing his kids come into the ring, his wife in New York at WrestleMania, and also who he beating Daniel Bryan, one of the true, a lot of people will argue he's the greatest in-ring wrestler of all time, and I would not argue against that. He's definitely in the conversation. So it's special moment for a great dude who really deserved it. And more than anything, like that's why we fought to stay together for so long. Is so often, like you alluded to in wrestling, is you have all these tropes of people who turn on each other, it's backstabbing, and obviously what we're selling is conflict at the end of the day, and it always comes down to that. But we wanted to tell a story of brotherhood, of like we had never seen, like we had a gauntlet match. Kobe had a gauntlet match to get a title opportunity where Vince snatches it away, and then Woods and I have to go through an hour gauntlet match as a tag team, not to win an opportunity for us, but for our friend. And I'd never seen anything like that in wrestling. I'd never seen a story of brotherhood like that. And we really were just excited to tell the story of three guys who just love each other so much that we're going to go through hell. We're going to go through an hour of pain, of ups and downs, of brutality for this guy who we love, who deserves it. And I think that's what's important in wrestling is telling unique stories. So yeah, man, those it's a real brotherhood. What you see on TV, when you see us together, it's real. It comes from a real place.
Yeah, the that moment where the Usos come out and just sort of give a little bit of respect was, I mean, again, there's script and you guys are selling conflict, but just that one little moment of solidarity is like genuine, like goosebump sort of stuff, even with everything. Ross, I think you had like one more question about Pancheros while we got you.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to talk to you about Panchero as well. We've got you. And, what is your relationship to the burrito lift tradition?
Yeah, man, Pancheros has been amazing. And like I said, I've been a longtime Pancheros fan since college. But now being able to voice the pieces that we did, the video pieces about the burrito lift, was such a fun opportunity. We shot that in Des Moines. And I'm excited. Hopefully, homecoming. I'm hoping to be able to go out on the field and hopefully lead the burrito lift. But I believe so. The burrito lift actually happened right after my last season. It was 2007, I believe, is the origin of the burrito lift. And I love how much Pancheros is tied to the university, to Iowa football, to Iowa athletics. And now being able to have this partnership with Pancheros really feels like an extension of my love for Iowa athletics. And I think Pancheros is going to continue to be a big part of Iowa football. It's such a great, fun tradition. I love being able to look out at Kinnick and seeing fans do the burrito lift. So yeah, man, we're excited to do some really cool things with Pancheros. It's honestly such an amazing brand, and everyone I've met with the company has been beyond lovely. I really believe in what they're doing, what they're building, and just the best of burritos. I always tell people I'm not going to name any burrito chains, but we all know the big ones. And I tell people who've ate at the big ones, you don't know what you're missing. The tortilla at Pancheros is different. The queso, it's the best queso I've ever had at a chain. The fresh veggies, it really sets it all apart. I honestly, even when no one was paying me to say a word about Pancheros, I was grabbing people and telling them Pancheros is the best burrito chain you will ever have. So I am excited. I have some friends. Actually, I'm bringing my girlfriend. She's excited to have Pancheros for the first time. We'll be in homecoming week. I'm excited to bring some friends. I'm trying to drag some people along with me to Pancheros so they experience that Pancheros is truly different. It's just a better burrito.
Well, I think we have to follow up on that. Like, what is your go-to Pancheros order then?
Okay, so this is something that I don't do every time because it can get a little rich. And I also try not to eat a lot of red meat. I try to really cut down on my red meat, but there's something about that steak. So I will go with, usually I'll go with rice, I'll go black beans, I'll go double steak, fresh veggies, got to have the queso, corn, pico de gallo, cheese, Bob, stir that bad boy up, and there we have it.
Oh,
Absolutely.
perfect.
All right, we have taken up so much of your time already, but there's one more question that I feel compelled as a journalist, as a longtime follower of your career, and as someone who grew up sort of watching pro wrestling. I'd be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity. You've been rehabbing from a inaction neck injury a broken vertebrae in your neck, really a horrifying injury for a while now. And I know that a bunch of Iowa fans are still holding out hope that they're going to be able to see you in a professional wrestling ring, in a WWE ring one day, and hopefully sooner rather than later. Is that door still open for you? Is your in-ring wrestling career still something that's available to you?
Yeah, well, right now the door is not permanently closed. It's but it has, it's been 2.5 years since I broke my neck. So right now, for those who don't know, so I broke my C1 in 2 places and my C6, and my C6 really wasn't the concern. It was the C1, and that is what they call a Jefferson fracture. And it can be a complicated fracture because it's broken in 2 places. Sometimes getting it to fuse the right way on its own can be difficult. And I was super fortunate. I didn't have any displacement when I broke my neck. So I had no spinal issues, thankfully, no issues with headaches, no strength issues, anything. I feel great. I feel normal. The only issue right now is to get medically cleared to go back into the ring to take bumps. Is they want to make sure that my neck is turning into bone. The spaces that are healing like cartilage, so it's healing fibrously. It's just not ossifying. It's not forming new bone yet, and that's something that could happen or might never happen. And thankfully, that means my quality of life will be completely fine day to day. But it really is a matter of whether it will form into new bone so that I can get cleared. And I recently. I got to work with this incredible company. They have offices in Cancun and Guadalajara called Rejuve Stem. And we went down to Cancun 3 months ago, and I got a ton of stem cells, also, for my shoulders, for my knees, but also intravenously, and did a bunch of treatments that hopefully will help with the formation of new bone. So it's one of those things where hopefully the next time I go in to get scans, we might get great news, and we might see that things are definitely healed. But more than anything, I'm happy right now doing what I'm doing. I'm excited about what's ahead of me. Some stuff I can't talk about yet, but some of the stuff I've been doing, like hosting or co-hosting our countdown shows for the PLEs. Like, we're doing a lot of these international shows. Just got a chance to be in Berlin for 3 days for that show. We're going to be in Vancouver for Survivor Series. So that's the great thing, is I'm still an active part of the WWE, still doing a lot of broadcasting stuff. There's a really, I don't think I can talk about this show that I got to host that should be out next year, but I'm really excited about it. So yeah, man, and that's a nice thing too, is oftentimes with conventional sports, if you're not on the field, that's kind of it. Like, what other options do you really have? But the great thing with WWE is there's so many other opportunities for me to stay active, to be involved. So I don't know what the future holds as far as getting medically cleared, as far as what my neck will look like. But more than anything, for all the fans who've been so incredible, I always thought, a year in, I thought people would have moved on and forgotten and not cared. It's been 2.5 years, and people still ask, and for me, that is incredibly heartwarming. And I think oftentimes the online community can get a reputation for being toxic and whatnot, but I've gotten so much positivity, so much love, so much warmth from people online, from fans in person, and that means so much to me. So I want to thank everyone who reached out, who DM'd, who just got a hold of me or just wished me well or prayed for me. It really, really means a lot. More than anything, I felt like I didn't get a chance to make much of an impact on the college football world on the field, and to be able to kind of, in many ways, feel like I got a redo, and to be able to make an impact on wrestling in this incredible industry of ours, this incredibly wacky, wild, absurd industry of ours, but one that has changed my life vastly for the better, is something that I am deeply, deeply grateful for. So I wish I had more answers for people, but more than anything, the message is thank you all so much for caring, for asking how I'm doing. I'm happy, I'm healthy, and we'll see what the future holds.
All right, Ross, anything else for Big E while we got him?
Well, I mean, we could talk for a lot longer, but I think we've taken enough of your time. So I'm just very grateful for being here with us and answering all our questions. And yeah, this was awesome. It's great conversation.
I appreciate it. No, thank you guys so much for having me. And it's one of those things where I hate that we only have 45 minutes for this, because I feel like I could talk to you guys for another 2-3 hours about this stuff. So thank you so much for one. It's just really nice to. I always get it when people don't really watch wrestling or don't know much about it. I understand, but it's really nice to be able to be interviewed by people who know their stuff and know their ups and downs. So thank you guys for being great at what you do. It was a great conversation. I had a lot of fun doing this, and I would definitely do it again. So yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, I really hope this is not the last time we get to talk to you. So for all you listeners, we appreciate you tuning in to this edition of HawkCast, brought to you by Hawkeye Beacon and IowaRivals.com. If you're not a premium subscriber yet, you can go ahead and do that at Iowa.rivals.com/subscribe. All of your support makes shows like this and reporting that we do possible, so we appreciate it very much. And also, don't forget to like and subscribe to this wherever you're listening or viewing this podcast. Leave a rate and review while you're at it. Helps us out a lot, and it makes us very happy. So on behalf of managing editor Ross Biner and special guest Big E, I am Adam Jacoby, publisher of Hawkeye Beacon. And for now, we will see you next time.